You know that feeling when your kids start making sure you take your pills, or your grandkids rush to carry your groceries like you're fragile. It's not that they don't love you, but you start to wonder, am I a burden? Maybe you've even said, don't bother, I'll manage, even when you're not sure you can. Here's something important. Your dignity isn't up for debate. Getting older doesn't mean you don't deserve to feel capable, respected, and in charge of your life. The problem isn't needing help sometimes. It's how society and even our families can make us feel less because of it. But here's the good news. You can get that pride back. In this video, we'll talk about 5 ways to do that. First, let's talk about independence. Not the I'll do everything alone kind. That's exhausting. Real independence is about choice. It's deciding what you want to do yourself and when you're okay asking for help. Take Margaret, for example. At 75, she hated feeling like her daughter was checking up on her every day. So she talked to her daughter and said, let's make a plan. I'll do my morning routine myself, but I'd like your help with groceries. That small change made a big difference. Her daughter stopped hovering, and Margaret felt trusted again. The key? You decide the terms. Now, second, your voice matters. Ever notice how people start talking over you or simplifying their words like you're not smart? It's frustrating. But here's what works. Stop that pattern. When someone interrupts you, try a friendly but firm, I wasn't finished. If they're explaining something you already know, smile and say, I've been balancing checkbooks since before online banking. I got this. Humor helps, but the message is clear. Talk to me like an adult. And here's where we often mess up. Guilt. Maybe you do need help with heavy lifting or driving at night. That's not a failure. It's practical. The difference between feeling like a burden and feeling empowered? Giving back when you can. Remember when your kids were little and needed you for everything? You didn't think of them as burdens. They were just people you loved, learning as they went. Now it's your turn to receive, and that's okay. But let's pause here. These first steps are about changing how you and they think. In the next part, we'll talk about how to rebuild confidence in your abilities and how to deal with those well-meaning but overbearing family moments without getting upset, because you deserve to feel valued, not just taken care of. Let's talk about something we don't say enough. Your body might have changed, but your skills haven't. Yeah, maybe you can't lift heavy stuff like you used to, or you need a moment to get up from a chair. But that doesn't erase all the things you know how to do. The real problem isn't what you can do. It's what other people assume you can't. Take control of the story. When your grandson automatically takes your keys and says, let me drive, Grandpa, he probably thinks he's helping. But instead of just handing them over, try saying, I appreciate you looking out for me, but I've got this. If I need help, I'll ask. That simple sentence does 2 things. It thanks him for caring, but also reminds him that you're still in charge. Now let's talk about purpose. Nothing makes you feel like a burden faster than sitting around with nothing to do. Remember Frank? At 78, his family had retired him from even simple things like setting the table. Then one day, his granddaughter asked him to teach her how to make his apple pie. Suddenly, he wasn't just Grandpa who needs help. He was the guy with the special recipe. That's the power of being needed for what you know, not just help for what you can't do. Here's how you can do that. If you've always been the fixer, don't let them hire a handyman without asking your advice first. Say, let me take a look. I might still know how to fix it. If you're the family historian, start recording those stories, not just for you, but because nobody else can tell them like you. If you love cooking but the kitchen's been taken over, claim 1 meal a week where you're back in charge, even if it's just scrambled eggs. The point isn't doing everything alone. It's staying involved in the family. And then there's the doctor's visit. How many times have you sat there while the doctor talks to your kid instead of you? Next time, try this. Before the appointment, tell your family, I want you there, but I need to answer questions. Then at the visit, if the doctor turns to your son or daughter, gently say, actually, I'd like to talk about this myself first. Most doctors will start talking to you. They're used to that pattern too. But here's the cool thing. The more you set these small boundaries, the less you'll have to. People treat you how you expect to be treated. Now, We've talked about how to change expectations and get your place in the family back. In the next part, we'll talk about the emotional side, how to quiet that inner voice telling you your problem, and how to deal with well-meaning help that feels like control. Because dignity isn't just about what others think of you. It's about what you think of yourself. Let's say something we don't say enough. Sometimes the person who makes us feel like a burden is us. That voice in your head that says, "Don't make a fuss," or "They're too busy." Here's the truth. That voice isn't helping anyone. It's stealing your joy. Think about the last time you didn't ask for something you needed because you didn't want to be a bother. Maybe it was skipping a doctor's appointment because you didn't want to ask for a ride, or pretending you weren't lonely because you didn't want to impose on your kids' time. But here's what happens. When you treat yourself like an inconvenience, you teach others to do the same. So let's try something different. Start accepting help like it's a gift, because it is. When your neighbor offers to pick up groceries, say, "That would be great. Thank you." When your daughter asks if you like company, say, "I'd love that." No apologies, no guilt, just gratitude. Because here's the secret. People want to feel useful. By letting them help, you're not taking something away. You're giving them a chance to show they care. Now, what about when help starts feeling like control? When every suggestion feels like they're taking over your life? That's when you need to know how to say no nicely. Try this. "I appreciate you thinking of me, but I've got my own way of doing this. Let's try my way first. If I need help, I'll let you know. I know you mean well, but this is something I want to handle myself." You're not being difficult. You're reminding them and yourself that your choices still matter. And finally, the most important step, do things that make you happy. Dignity isn't just about how others treat you. It's about how you feel when you're alone. Plant flowers, even if your back hurts a little. Join that senior book club, even if you're the new one, with a bright red sweater your grandkid says is too much. Every time you do something just because it makes you happy, you're claiming your place in the world. Remember Helen? At 82, she started watercolor painting. Badly, at first. Her kids joked about mom's blob art, but she kept at it. And when her great-granddaughter asked her to teach her how to paint, suddenly, those silly little hobbies became her legacy. That's the real secret. You're not just fighting to be accepted as you are. You're showing everyone, including yourself, that you're still growing. So here's my challenge for you this week. Do one thing that makes you feel like you again, not the grandma or the patient or the elderly neighbor, just you. And when someone offers help, take it, not because you need it, but because you deserve it, because the world needs your wisdom, your stories, and yes, even your stubbornness. Don't apologize for being here. You've earned it. If this made sense to you, I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. What's one small way you've gotten your dignity back recently? And if you found this helpful, hit that like button and subscribe for more honest talks about living well at any age. Here's to living boldly, no matter what the calendar says. Let me say something you probably don't hear enough. Getting older doesn't change who you are. That lively, capable person you've always been, they're still there. But somehow, society starts saying your worth goes down with every birthday. And if we're not careful, we start believing it. I want to tell you about George. At 79, he was sitting alone at family gatherings while his kids, who were 50, made all the decisions. One day, his grandson asked him about his time in the Korean War. As George told stories he hadn't shared in years, something amazing happened. The room got quiet. Everyone listened. In that moment, he wasn't just old grandpa. He was George, a man with an incredible life. This brings me to the most important thing. Stop waiting for permission to be heard. Your experiences, your opinions, just being you. These aren't things you need to ask for. They're yours. Here's how to do this. When people are talking around you instead of to you, politely but firmly say, "Actually, I have something to say about that." Not angry, not defensive, just present. When you're about to say, "Oh, never mind, it's not important," stop yourself. Your needs are as important as anyone else's. That doctor's appointment you don't want to bother anyone with? Your opinion on where to eat Sunday dinner? how you like your coffee. These are daily reminders that you still matter. And here's something we need to talk about: the idea that you have to do everything yourself. Real dignity isn't about that. It's about choosing when and how to accept help. There's no shame in needing help, just like there was no shame when your kids needed your help years ago. Try thinking this way. Instead of, I don't want to be a burden, ask yourself, how can we work together on this? That changes everything. You're not a problem to solve. You're a partner. Now, let's talk about something important. You can change your mind. Maybe last year you were okay with not driving, but now you miss it. Maybe you agreed to move in with family, but you want your own space. These feelings are normal. It's okay to say, I've been thinking, and I'd like to try something different. Remember, dignity isn't one big thing. It's built from many small moments where you respect yourself. It's how you insist on being involved in decisions about your care, the boundaries you set for your space and things, the hobbies you keep because they make you happy, the stories you tell, even if some people have heard them before. To finish, I want you to remember, you're not becoming less as you age, you're becoming different. And different doesn't mean worse. Those wrinkles, they show you've gotten through everything life threw at you. That slower pace, it's wisdom telling you to enjoy the moment. So tomorrow morning, when you wake up, do this. Look in the mirror and say out loud, I'm still here. I still matter. Because you do. Not despite your age, but because of all the years that made you who you are. If this made sense to you, I'd love to hear in the comments, how will you show your dignity this week? And if you found this helpful, please share it. We're all in this together, aging, learning, and reminding each other that our worth doesn't expire.